Hi guys, Christian, Vancouver Realtor, and for today's video I want to talk to you about this wealth tax article that I came across. I think it sucks, and I want to tell you why. The ideas are half-baked, and you really have to question the type of writing that you're reading. You know, this came across the Vancouver Sun, and there's 3 UBC faculty members led by this guy named Tom Davidoff, and they want to put a wealth tax. So basically anybody who lives in an expensive home on the west side, you live in a $3.7 million house, you should pay 1% of that in tax. Or in other words, $37,000 a year, which would be a lot of money for someone. And they could be a retiree. I mean, it could be 85-year-old Bob and Barbara living there. So you're gonna see a lot of this kind of stuff in the media. And I wanted to take this article and read excerpts of it and share some questions that immediately come to my mind. Because whenever you're exposed to information on the internet, or you're reading an article like this one in the Vancouver Sun, you should be constantly asking yourself questions. So I want to show you the kinds of questions that I'm asking myself when I'm reading this, and I'm often saying, well, what's the alternative? What's the benefit? What's the risk to this type of proposal? Okay, so let's get started with it. So these guys, they wrote a paper showing that many expensive owners of houses in Greater Vancouver pay trivial amounts of tax, meaning not much. Owners of homes with a median value of $3.7 million are paying income taxes of just $15,800. Okay, so what they're not saying here is that there's a lot of foreign buyers who bought homes on Vancouver's west side, and it's maybe owned by a mom and her son, and maybe dad's off in China working, making money at his business there. So first thing is, I wish they would just use plain, simple language to get right at their point. Now, the next thing is, I'm gonna ask myself, why should we care about this? Why is this bad for us local British Columbians? Okay, let's move along. So the authors suggest a minimum income tax on owners of pricey homes in Canada, and they're saying that these homes appear to be purchased with wealth derived from sources other than earnings in Canada. Okay, so my question is, well, how do you know this? What are your sources for this, right? Are they digging through tax returns, or is this through StatsCan? So I want to know where the authors are getting this information from. Again, the next question I'm going to ask, why should we care? Okay, moving along, they propose a 1% tax, so a $4 million home would pay $40,000 wealth tax every year. So, hey, that sounds like a good idea, right? Because a $4 million house, that's really expensive. Those people must be rich. But again, I would say, like, are they 83 years old and retired? Maybe they've been living in the house the last 34 years. They paid off their mortgage over 27 of those years. Can they afford to pay a $40,000 tax? You may force that older senior couple to have to sell the property. So they're not getting into that, however. Okay, so let's keep going. The author of this article cites a plebiscite, so a vote in Los Angeles on a 4% surcharge to homes valued over $5 million. And this money is going to go to social housing in LA. Okay, well, that sounds like a really good idea. So a couple of things. We kind of already have that here, right? It's called the property transfer tax. Somebody buying a $2 million home, for example, is paying $38,000 in property transfer tax. Another point here, $5 million house in LA would be about a $7 million house in Canada, right? Because you got to make the transfer for the conversion of the USD to Canadian dollars. That's a very expensive home. There's not a lot of $7-8 million properties in the Greater Vancouver area. And in fact, you'd probably find them in Point Grey and on Vancouver's West Vancouver. That's pretty much it. But good. I mean, it sounds, why not, right? Tax the uber rich. And then the article goes on to say that they've experimented with this in European countries with mixed results. Well, what are those mixed results? Let's dig into that a little bit deeper. How has it worked well? How has it not worked well? I know that a number of years ago there were rich, wealthy citizens in France who wanted to move their money out of France because they were considering a 75% wealth tax. And so actors and so on were trying to move their place of residence outside of France. So anyway, I think it's a knock-on effect here is you could drive a lot of people out of your province. And they'll take their wealth with them. You want to compare and contrast to other regions in North America. So for example, I just did a little bit of digging on this. The income taxes. So when we talk about taxes and property taxes like these proposed, a wealth tax, if you compare, people will think, well, you've got it really good in the lower mainland. Yes, our property taxes are much lower in places like BC and Ontario. However, we also pay really high income taxes. We pay 50% in some cases of income taxes. We pay property transfer taxes. Of course, you're also paying a goods and services, provincial sales tax. If you go and buy a car, there's 12% right there. Now, compare that in the state of Washington. If you're down the highway here, you're working and living in Seattle, you're not paying any taxes. If you go even further in a state like Arizona, you're paying 2.5% to 4.5%. Nevada, no tax. Florida, no income tax. That's pretty cool. Back here in BC, we pay up to 21% in income tax. So, yeah, I mean, you can derive taxes from certain from income and property taxes, but I think what these guys are not addressing, these 3 UBC faculty members, and what's not talked about in this article is a comparison of taxes, different types that are levied by provinces and states. Here you go, and that's just the way I might read an article. I'll be constantly asking questions of what I'm reading, and I'll be thinking of, are there examples that they can cite? Are there examples pro and con? And what is the best result? So I think that is my suggestion on how you might want to read what you read online in a publication like the Vancouver Sun. And certainly when it comes to a wealth tax, I mean, I don't know that there's a good example of this, certainly not off the top of my head. If you know of one where they have instituted a wealth tax and it's been of benefit to that society or that jurisdiction, by all means, put it in the comment section. I'd love to read and learn more about it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.